Welcome to the Eversio Experience podcast. I'm Brandi Garden, the co-founder of Eversio Wellness, and I'm here with my co-host, Desiree Caruso, who has a background in naturopathic medicine.
We're here to talk all about the world of mushroom wellness because mushrooms are critical to the maintenance of our physical well-being and our collective mental health.
We believe mushrooms are symbols of interconnectedness, and we're so excited to connect you with the health, wellness, and wisdom that they have brought us on our journey to this moment.
Our ancestors had deep cultural connections to mushrooms, but today they remain understudied, undervalued, and often misunderstood by much of modern society.
So we are here to change that. Eversio means change, and it's our mission to change lives through fungi.
There is a mushroom for every moment.
And we're so glad you're here to share this moment with us. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Eversio Experience podcast. I'm Brandi, and I'm here again with my fabulous co-host, Dr. Desiree Caruso, naturopathic physician. And today we are talking about the one thing that really makes or breaks a mushroom wellness product, in my opinion, and that's quality. So we're going to dive right in. Why is quality the most important topic when it comes to functional mushroom products? Dr. Desiree, tell us.
Without quality, products simply don't work. You cannot fake nature's wisdom. If the product doesn't deliver the right compounds in the right form, then it won't deliver the benefits.
End podcast end. We could really simply end it there. That's such a great way to say it. Exactly true. We're often reminding people new to the kingdom fungi that it's not just about taking mushrooms, it's about taking the right mushrooms, prepared the right way. And that's what ensures that they do what the research and the labels say that they will. And this is why you will never see us selling things that aren't represented in the research, like gummies that are full of sugars or waxes, or tinctures that are mostly alcohol, or mycelium on grain products that are mostly rice or oats or sorghum. Our promise at Eversio to you is always real, organic certified, concentrated, whole fruiting body mushroom extracts that are 100% in line with current research. And that's what this episode is all about.
Okay, can you explain what the foundation of quality in functional mushrooms looks like?
Absolutely. And this is where we started the business. So 5 years ago, we realized it's not one thing, it's actually this whole system. So it's a really coherent one that blends both traditional use and cutting edge science. And we think of it as kind of a self-correcting ecosystem made of 4 parts. And the first one was the most fascinating to us because it's a system that begins with traditional knowledge. Like, mushrooms are not new. Tradition that supports modern use of functional mushrooms. So what we do in the modern world today is really based on and guided by long and rich tradition. And when I say long, the use of reishi has been recorded at least 4,000 years ago. We know 4,000 years ago.
Wow.
So there's no question we have to look to tradition first. So one of the most common questions we get from our customers at Eversio is, why do you source your mushrooms from China? And there's a lot of fear around sourcing things outside of our own country, outside of our own continent. But the answer is really simple. It's rooted in integrity and centuries of ancient Taoist philosophy called Di-Dao. And this is often new for people. If you are wondering what I'm saying the word D, spelled D-I, and Dao, spelled D-A-O, if you wanted to go look it up. But I'll just tell you, Di-Dao is the concept of growing mushrooms or herbs in their spiritual and native homeland. This is the preferred environment, atmospheric energy, pressure, and altitude required to grow and thrive. So when mushrooms and herbs are grown Di-Dao, they deliver their intended spiritual intention and potency to the body. Contrastingly, when functional mushrooms are not grown Di-Dao, many of the new trendy companies around today, and some of the older companies using science that's just been proven to be outdated, these mushrooms are instead grown in labs, often grown on rice or sorghum or oats, or even some that are grown on wood, but away from their natural environment. They just inevitably lack quality and their innate energetic potency. And that was so important to us. So in short, we proudly source our functional mushrooms from the deep mountainous regions of Northeast China, far from industrial towns. And this is where they grow in their natural habitat with plenty of fresh air, just the way Mother Nature intended. In nature, mushrooms grow where they can breathe oxygen. they eat oxygen just like we do, where they can acquire nourishment from the ecosystem of living organisms in the wood that they grow on. When we go into the forest, we do not see functional mushrooms growing on grain. They have not evolved to do that. They're all growing on wood. Mother Nature doesn't get it wrong when she builds a mushroom. And that's why in our products, you will find percentages of the beneficial bioactive compounds that have been there since 4,000 years ago, like beta glucans and all of those secondary metabolites. You'll find them there because we're growing them the way they were meant to be grown. So, sourcing our mushrooms from our incredible fungi friends in the most advanced and sustainable historic cultivation areas on this planet is the only way to ensure that we are providing the highest quality, most potent, high vibration functional mushroom products that we can.
Another thing too is the modern clinical practice. Like, how are functional
Absolutely.
mushrooms supported in a modern world where we're taking into account the traditional use, but also advancing it? And, we learn new things here. So modern clinical practice refers to how health professionals like naturopathic doctors, integrative medical doctors, herbalists, nutritionists, dietitians, where they use evidence-based protocols that include functional mushrooms to support their patient outcomes. So, for example, what does that look like in more detail? Well, that's evidence-based therapeutic use. So, modern clinicians are incorporating functional mushrooms like reishi, lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail, and chaga into treatment plans that are based on peer-reviewed research, clinical trials, case studies, as well as observed patient outcomes, which is an important one too. These are not anecdotal or woo-woo remedies anymore. They are formulary grade botanicals used alongside or in place of pharmaceuticals depending on the case. So, for example, it's using personalized protocols. Functional mushrooms are prescribed in targeted doses that are based on the individual and many aspects of the individual, utilizing doses that are consistent in research, not just fairy dusting. So, they're looking at the individual, their health condition. Is it anxiety, fatigue, or is it something maybe more complex like autoimmune conditions? What is their age, their medication interactions, and their constitution too, which can take into account from a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint or even Ayurvedic influences. And functional mushrooms are often stacked with other herbs, supplements, nutrients, or even lifestyle recommendations for synergy. For example, utilizing lion's mane and B complex for neurological support, or lion's mane and tyrosine for individuals who struggle with focus and productivity, like ADHD individuals, or reishi and ashwagandha for stress and adrenal recovery. So we can utilize them and combine them together. They're being used by practitioners. The other thing is that they're science-backed mechanisms or evidence-informed mechanisms. So clinicians are drawn to functional mushrooms because their active constituents are well studied. Beta glucans, they're immune modulating, or you've heard us use the term immunomodulating. Triterpenes, they're anti-inflammatories, protective of the liver. There are also specific triterpenes unique to different functional mushrooms. For example, reishi has ganoderic acid that's unique to reishi. Haricinones, which are unique to lion's mane, helps to promote nerve growth factor, or NGF for short. Polysaccharopeptides, which are in turkey tail, can support cancer therapy adjunctively, so utilizing that in combinations with pharmaceuticals. So these mechanisms are supported by in vitro, and human clinical trial data. There's also this integrative collaboration. Modern clinical practice often includes the collaboration between Western and Eastern disciplines, and this is personally another reason why I really love the field of naturopathic medicine, because it's combining those two and applying it in different ways to different individuals based on their needs. For example, oncologists or even naturopathic oncologists, which are FABNO designated, they may recommend turkey tail during chemotherapy. Functional medicine doctors may use reishi to modulate cortisol and support sleep. These practitioners are communicating through conferences, webinars, peer-reviewed journals, and advancing the conversation and updating protocols regularly. And that's why I think we've seen that as more mainstream, and learning about functional mushrooms and how it's being integrated with some of these other medicines and interventions.
Absolutely.
The other thing too is that product standards are critical. Clinicians require standardized extracts with guaranteed levels of active compounds. And I'll speak for myself personally as a clinician. I will not recommend a product that isn't of high quality. And Clinicians alike will often avoid any product that contains mycelium on grain if it lacks third-party testing, if it doesn't disclose beta glucan content. They may say polysaccharides, but does that mean alpha glucan or beta glucan? Beta glucan particular to functional mushrooms. And that's why Eversio products are trusted by practitioners, because they are meeting this clinical standard for potency, purity, and transparency.
Wow, Dr. Desiree, tradition is amazing and it's everything to me, but when you bring that clinical perspective in, it just makes it so easy to understand what we have to look at about the quality based on who's going to be using it and who they're collaborating with for somebody's health, health or wellness. I think the third thing is, when it comes to quality, the biomedical research out there. And I'd love to tell a little story because back in 2023, at Eversio Wellness as a team, we did the 75 Hard Challenge. Remember that? So this is where we committed to, as a team, for 75 days, we would do 2 workouts a day. We would drink a ton of water. I think I only ever got to 3 liters of water a day, but I felt like I was drowning. We would make a positive change to our nutrition, and we would read 10 pages of self-help or educational literature each day. Workouts, water, nutrition, and reading each day to improve ourselves for 75 days in a row without failing. And that 10 pages of reading was my favorite part, because at that time, Dr. Ludovic Le-Renard, who's a PhD mycologist, invited me to do something very different than I'd ever done before, and to join him, instead of reading a self-help book, which I feel like I have read them all, to read 10 pages of mushroom research each day with him. And that's a lot of research. And what a gift it was to sit with a scientist, a researcher, a published scientist, and learn what it looks like to read research through his eyes. And I just, if I didn't already love mushrooms, after that 75 days, I felt like I had done a PhD. And we studied research globally. We weren't just looking at what was happening in our own 4 walls or in Canada or in the North America or even in Asia. We looked globally, and it really opened my eyes to how far-reaching mushrooms truly are. And we were looking at what effects various molecules found in the mushrooms we work with might have on health, both looking at in vitro and in vivo research. So Dr. Ludo, he dedicated his whole life to fungi, completed a PhD on the evolution of fungi on our planet. And this little section is for you, Dr. Ludo. What I learned is that today, so I looked this morning, there are about 7,300 published research papers on medicinal mushrooms on PubMed today that are available to everyone.
Wow.
The research began in the late 1940s on mushrooms, but there were only about 300 papers published up to the year 2000. The real spike hit when my daughter was born in 2011, so 14 years ago, with over 6,000 research articles published since that year. And that means that over 85% of all research ever done on these fungi has been done in the last 14 years. That stat is super powerful to me when we talk about the credibility and momentum behind functional mushrooms, because it just shows this explosive growth in scientific interest. The fact that over 85% of mushroom research has happened just in this past decade or so shows that scientists and medical communities are really taking mushrooms seriously. It's not just a trend. This is a wave of global scientific curiosity that's so exciting, and it just really validates what ancient traditions have known for thousands of years. Also, we see this accelerated innovation in healthcare and wellness in general. And it's because we have modern tools, and we'll talk about that down the way, but NMR, HPLC, genome sequencing. This is what we were reading about in this research we looked at, where researchers can now pinpoint these active compounds like beta-glucans or triterpenes or these hericenones we talk about in lion's mane all the time, and really start to understand how they work in the human body. So this has led to more precise extraction methods, targeted health applications for those of you, like you, Dr. Des, like you are in a clinic with a live human and you're looking for a targeted application for these mushrooms and looking to research to help inform that. And clinical grade formulations that you can actually use, the kind practitioners can confidently recommend to their patients.
Hmm.
It comes to me to the validation of that traditional wisdom. So traditional Chinese medicine, and we're Canadian, the indigenous practices of healing right here, we have used mushrooms like reishi and chaga for thousands of years. Now modern science is finally catching up,
Hmm.
proving that those traditions were right. And this really bridges the gap between heritage and hard data. That's
Hmm.
incredibly reassuring to conscious consumers like you and I. So I see this as a signpost for product quality and demand. The surge in research is driving higher expectations around quality and transparency and efficacy. And that's how we built the business. That's what we wanted. We had high expectations for what we were putting in our body. We couldn't find what we wanted. Quality, transparency, and efficacy are what we were after, and that's what we've built. So as more data becomes available, companies like us can no longer cut corners. The educated consumer and clinician is demanding evidence-based products that deliver results. It's amazing. I love it. It tells us that this isn't folklore anymore. This is modern science. Dr. Ludo used to say science in progress, and it's evolving fast. And that's why quality matters more than ever. If a brand isn't staying on top of the research, they're already behind. No longer is there a place for mycelium on grain products on store shelves. I have to say it. And I'm not being judgmental. It's just old science. There's not a place for it on the shelves of practitioner clinics. And these products have no more benefits than consuming the grain they're grown on themselves, proven over and over again in this current lab testing we have. So I think it's time for us to really just look to the science, but know that it was informed by tradition and know that quality cannot be compromised.
Totally. And if you even look at epidemiological studies, so in simple terms, epidemiological research looks at who gets sick, who stays healthy, what people are eating, doing, or exposed to, and how those factors connect over time and across large groups of people. It's the science of spotting patterns in real life settings, not just in a lab. So these studies are a really big part of the evidence base that supports the use of functional mushrooms, not just as isolated supplements, but as part of a health promoting diet. And Brandi and I have talked about
Mm-hmm.
this in previous episodes too. I think particularly we touch on it a ton in the men's health episode,
Yeah.
where we talk about consumption of mushrooms, not just a supplemental form with high quality extracts, but even just
Yeah.
culinary mushrooms, eating that as part of your diet and cooking them. And we've seen that there are lower incidences of all-cause mortality. And specifically in that episode, we talked about cancer, specifically prostate cancer and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot, because higher dietary consumption is associated with longer lifespan. So I'll get into a couple different examples. So when we look at mushroom consumption and longevity, here's a specific example of a study. It was a Japanese cohort study like the Osaki study, and it followed tens of thousands of adults for over a decade. And they found that people who consumed mushrooms regularly had lower all-cause mortality, especially due to cardiovascular disease. Why does that matter? It suggests that mushrooms, even culinary ones like shiitake and maitake, may protect the heart and help people live longer. If we look at mushrooms with respect to brain health, there was this study from the National University of Singapore that was published in 2019 looking at older adults and cognitive function, and they found that seniors who ate more than 2 servings of mushrooms per week had a 52% reduced risk of mild cognitive impairment. This
Wow.
matters because functional mushrooms like lion's mane have specific compounds, hericenones and erinacines, that may support neurogenesis and memory, and hericenones are specific to the fruiting body of lion's mane. If we look at mushrooms as preventative medicine, because that's what a lot of people are doing when they're really looking at health and wellness and maybe seeing an ND, there was this study in China where they looked at long-term epidemiological data from rural China. It linked mushroom intake to lower inflammation markers and reduced cancer risk. And
Yes,
the
please.
Yes, please. And the focus was on populations that consume traditional medicinal mushrooms like reishi and poria as part of their regular herbal diets. And this matters because it suggests that consistent daily intake, not just supplementation, can provide this protective baseline for chronic diseases. And I'll get into one more too. If we look at mushroom consumption and cardiovascular risk specifically, there were these meta-analyses. So several global reviews have shown that mushrooms may improve lipid profiles, lower blood pressure, and reduce oxidative stress. And this mechanism they think is likely due to beta glucans, ergothioneine, and antioxidants, which are reducing systemic inflammation. So it's showing that this supports the role of mushrooms in everyday dietary prevention, especially in Western nations with high heart disease rates.
Like what you're saying to me is we have learned from the past, we have validated it through science, and we have now made sure that it's useful in both consumer and practitioner settings right now today. So like it's covered. There are so many people out there that will say there's not enough research. I have had people come to me and say, I asked my doctor about mushrooms and they said there's no good research. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That just short explanation of those 4 examples tells us there is research. It's great. Nothing is coming but good things from those who are eating mushrooms as part of their day-to-day diet, like our ancestors did. Such a cool little summary. Thank you for that.
And it really integrates all of the things that there is research, like you said, and also anecdotally and through experiences with individuals. In our last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago, we talked about individuals who took our mushroom extracts and experienced significant drops in their blood pressure and their lipid levels because they didn't want to take a statin. And so it just goes to show that we need to be looking at all forms of evidence, and the evidence is available to us. It just depends whether we're looking for it or not, I think is the biggest thing.
And we're looking.
We're looking.
Every day.
We're looking. Our eyes are wide open. Okay, I'm going to ask a question to you, Brandi, and I think it's very simple, and I think a lot of our listeners will know this, but it's important for us to touch on it. What part of the mushroom really matters when it comes to quality?
Yeah. This one's so misunderstood. It's so misunderstood. I think in herbalism, you know, the different parts of a plant do different things, right? We know when we look at an apple tree out in our front yard, we know which part of that tree we're going to consume. It's not going to be the bark, and it's not going to be the leaves. It's going to be the apple. But for some reason, it's so misunderstood when it comes to mushrooms. But really, the same goes for mushrooms. There's the fruiting body of the mushroom. There's the mycelium, the root system, and then there are the spores of the mushroom. And here's the kicker. All traditional use and an overwhelming majority of modern science is based on the fruiting body. Let me just repeat that. All traditional use is based on the fruiting body. And that's the part that has the triterpenes, the beta-glucans, all the magic. So it's really no surprise.
But many products use mycelium grown on grain, or MOG, which dilutes the potency with starch from grains like rice, sorghum, or oats. We call that filler, and it's not what nature intended. It's a cheap and fast shortcut that's designed as a money-making business model that really ignores tradition and modern science. And even there are people who are trying to avoid grains from their practitioner for a specific diet, but now they're taking a mushroom product that they think has mushrooms in it, and it does, but it has also a lot of filler in there, and that's your story. You were taking that too. Okay, so once we have the right mushroom part, what happens next?
Well, and that's it. We love to just tell people to eat mushrooms if you can. And honestly, if you are somebody that could put mushrooms in your diet even 3 times a week, you know, a decent serving, getting a cup of cooked mushrooms onto your plate 3 times a week, there's probably no need for you to be taking mushroom supplements. But there are so many people that won't do that, that can't do that because they don't like the taste, or they don't like the texture, or they're not certain about how to cook them well, or their family won't eat them and they don't want to prepare them just for themselves. And I really hope that that will change over time, that we'll get back to it. And we certainly see it here in Vancouver in our restaurants, with so many of our Michelin star restaurants here having chefs who are wild foraging mushrooms and putting them on the menu that night. Like that just goosebumps all over. Warms my heart. It's coming back. If you haven't had Kentucky Fried Maitake in downtown Vancouver, you need to do that. But when we are dealing with people who don't want the inconvenience of having to introduce mushrooms into their diet, we do move to a supplement like we do with many other minerals and vitamins. And in this case, we can't just buy any mushroom supplement and expect that we're going to get the medicine from it, because without extraction, that doesn't happen. The next thing that happens when you've decided I want a fruiting body only mushroom is an extraction and a processing system, and these are crucial. So we use methods like dual extraction, using water and alcohol together to make sure that we're pulling out all of the good stuff, like beta glucans and triterpenes, when we're using a mushroom like reishi that requires that. And it's different for each mushroom. When we're working with a mushroom like cordyceps, we don't dual extract that mushroom because we're looking for things like cordycepin and adenosine and beta glucans as well, and water is enough to do that. So the extraction process is important. The processing part is also equally important.
Plus, we test everything post extraction to confirm that we got those active constituents in the right amounts. And that's where quality really shines, because nature gives us everything, but science is there to help us verify it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what types of tests are done to prove quality?
Oh, now you're talking Dr. Shannon Dragasevich, who is another ND that works with us at Eversio, but never comes on the podcast because she's too busy doing quality assurance, certifying us, doing all of the things that she does so incredibly well. And her passion is this testing. Her passion, she's a naturopathic doctor as well, who comes to mushrooms for personal reasons and has a real passion behind making sure that what goes out our door is the best and that we can all feel confident saying it. She's the one that is making sure the right tests are being used on the right mushrooms at the right time. And she's so good at what she does. I can confidently say at Eversio, we go all in on testing. It's a real go big or go home thing for us. The Megazyme test will be the big one. The Megazyme test is the gold standard for testing for beta glucans, specifically fungal beta glucans. In our industry, it's a test that comes out of Ireland. It is used right from the very beginning, from our raw materials all the way down through our finished products, to make sure that the beta glucan content is potent enough to be used as what we would consider medicine. And then from there, we would use HPLC testing for ergothioneine and other key compounds. We'll use something called HPTLC, and that does not stand for tender loving care. I'll talk a little bit more about it, for authenticating mushroom identity. So making sure that a reishi is actually reishi, because there was a study many years ago now where they pulled some reishi supplement products off of shelves in grocery stores, health food stores across the USA. Many samples were taken and brought back to a lab, and this is shocking. Over 75% of those reishi products taken off the shelf had no reishi mushroom in them, none. And that's terrifying as a consumer. Gosh. So the testing that's available to actually show us, to authenticate the identity of mushroom, is available. And we do that through testing secondary metabolites, like making sure there are triterpenes in there. I guarantee you there are no triterpenoids in a mycelium 1-grain product. And therefore, we know it's not going to do what a full fruiting body product does. And then there's NMR, which is nuclear magnetic resonance imaging, which is brand new. This is brand new cutting edge science, and it's for molecular identity. What goes on behind the scenes when ensuring quality and potency in functional mushroom products is really a lot of boring testing, a lot of time spent in the lab after they're harvested from those beautiful mountainsides to make sure that they're going to do what we say they're going to do on the label or in our blog or on a website or on this podcast. So that Megazyme test, it's just really validated enzymatic assay testing designed specifically to quantify those beta glucans. A company must be using it. And it matters because beta glucans are the primary immunomodulating polysaccharides found in medicinal mushrooms. If we don't test that they're there, if you pick up a product on a shelf and it doesn't say beta glucans on the label, do not buy it. It's that simple. If it says polysaccharides, old science, not specific enough. We just can't have it anymore. And what I love about the Megazyme test is it does distinguish between fungal beta glucans and other types of polysaccharides. However, we know that the test isn't perfect, and we know that there are brands out there right now today on the shelves of the store down the street from me that are putting beta glucans on their label. And I know for a fact, because we have tested them, that the beta glucans that are on the label for that product are coming from grain in that product because they're not using the right testing kit. So we're seeing cereal beta glucans show up on mushroom products because these products have grain in them. And that's why we just can't have any grain in a mushroom product. It seems so simple to me. We always say, if your mushroom product doesn't pass the Megazyme test, it's basically like drinking decaf coffee when you think it's a triple shot. And I know you coffee lovers out there will know what I mean. It's just not going to be potent enough to do what you want it to do. HPLC, this stands for high performance liquid chromatography. And this is a chemistry technique used to identify and measure specific compounds inside a mixture. And we use it in mushroom testing because it is what can accurately detect and quantify things like ergothioneine, one of our favorite molecules to talk about. Ergo is a powerful antioxidant that's quite unique to mushrooms. It occurs in other foods, but there's nothing on the planet that has more ergothioneine in it than mushrooms. And we want to know how much is there. So we do test for that. And the HPLC test is what we can use for that. We also can use it for testing triterpenoids and things like amino acids and vitamins and other bioactives. And again, this just confirms that this is a functional mushroom and not just a filler product. So HPLC, you can think of it like a fingerprint scanner for mushrooms. It tells us if the magic compounds like ergothioneine are really there and how much of them you're actually getting. Then HPTLC is high performance thin layer chromatography. And this is newer, and it is actually beautiful to look at when you look at what these tests come back like. It's just a sophisticated version of the classic thin layer chromatography used for visualizing and identifying the secondary metabolites. So we really love looking at this with our chaga and our reishi and our cordyceps mushrooms. And this verifies the identity of the mushroom species. So are we actually looking at lion's mane here, or is it just a look-alike? And can we detect these signature compounds? For instance, haricinones. They're only in lion's mane. This test can detect if haricinones are present, showing us that that mushroom we're testing is in fact a lion's mane mushroom. And if they're organoderic acids, we know we're looking at reishi. If there's inositol, we know we're looking at chaga, and so on. This test really prevents fraud and mislabeling, and companies should be using it. It confirms authenticity for consumers. Think of HPTLC like mushroom CSI. It lays out the evidence in these colorful bands that prove we've got the real thing, and they're quite beautiful to look at. They kind of look like these little rainbow spectrums. The new science that's coming along is this NMR, which stands for nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. And this is a cutting edge tool that uses magnetic fields and radio waves, so cool, to analyze the molecular structure of compounds. And this is where we can really start to identify exact chemical structures. It's expensive. It's extremely precise. Nothing can fake its way past this test. And I think this is where we're going in the mushroom world. This is what's coming for all companies to be using in the future. And I think if HPTLC is mushroom CSI, then NMR is like using NASA tech to map out the inside of a mushroom at a molecular level. And I'm super, super excited about the fact that it's here. This is how we guarantee what's on the label and what's in the jar every single time. It is just quality assurance at every step, thanks to our fabulous Dr. Shannon.
Okay, why don't we talk about reishi as an example to look closely at product quality from start to finish? How does where and how it grows impact its quality?
Yeah, well, I love to use reishi as the example. It's known as the mushroom of immortality, and it gets its power from growing on organic logs in a forest-like environment where it absorbs the sap and the other natural compounds that eventually become triterpenes.
And when reishi is grown on grain like rice, sorghum, or oats, it can't make those triterpenes. And that's why reishi grown this way is basically inactive. There's no honor to tradition or science in that.
So then what happens between extraction and putting the product into your patient's hands?
Okay, so we're definitely not done once we've got the extract. We still have to get it into capsules or powder without compromising it. That means keeping it free from contaminants. So organic certification practices from cultivation to drying to extraction to transportation to all handling facilities along the way. That is ensuring proper moisture content at all stages using organic certified capsules, which Eversio is the only brand doing this. We're very proud of that. And maintaining consistent potency across every batch. So standardization with Health Canada's NPNs.
Yeah. And I think that is such a good point. Those organic certified capsules, you will see the USDA organic symbol show up on some of our marketing and website and labels and things. And other brands either don't have it at all or are using it not legitimately, I will say. And the reason is that for a supplement that comes to you in a capsule, to be able to say organic, that capsule has to be organic itself, and people just aren't doing it, and it's because of the cost. And it's something we're not willing to pass up. We're not willing to pass up the quality because of cost, because we know our consumers want to feel confident about the safety and efficacy of what they're consuming. So that capsule was a big deal to us. Our manufacturers hate us for it because it can be difficult to work with. It's made from mushrooms itself, but it makes me so proud every time I see that symbol and know that everything in there is organic certified. And I love that we are leading the way for that. Our goal is that every time you guys out there, Eversio community, take a dose, that you get the same outcome and that it's quality that you can feel.
Hearing all of this makes me really proud that we are all of these things and we're doing all of these things. And Dr. Shannon Dragacevich, she's really spearheading this with quality assurance and really takes that integrity to heart and has that sense of integrity. You talked about organic certification, and we know why it matters. And it's not just for supplements too; it's for products in the grocery store. We see this label everywhere. But why specifically does organic certification matter?
Yeah, and it's a good point. It's not just about mushrooms, but we are a family who tries to buy organic when we can for the things that matter. And you can go look up the Dirty Dozen, the produce that is non-negotiable. You need to buy this organic, and mushrooms would be one of them, because mushrooms are what we would consider bioaccumulators. They soak up whatever is in their environment. Growing them organically is the only way to ensure that they are free from things like pesticides and heavy metals or whatever other toxins. So it's a non-negotiable with mushrooms. They have to be organic certified.
And as mentioned too, we don't just stop at the mushrooms. Every part of the process, from the drying stage all the way to the capsule stage, it's all organic certified.
Yes, and this is where the cost starts to add up, because every stage of that organic certification is another audit, another test, another check, and another cost. So what makes Eversio's mushrooms so effective compared to others then, in your opinion, Dr. Desiree? Because you're in clinic, you're seeing patients, and you have lots of options, and you ended up here. What is it that makes Eversio's mushrooms so effective?
The thing that I hear all the time, and I know you hear this all the time too, is I tried other mushroom products and didn't feel anything, but with yours, I notice a change in how I feel.
And that's because we don't rely on one isolated compound. You're feeling the entourage effect of all of those natural constituents working together. It's not just because we know you could go to a store right now and you could buy beta glucans. You could buy just pure ergothioneine, but buying something that has all of these things working together the way Mother Nature designed them, like the beta glucans with the triterpenes, with the ergothioneine, with the chitin and the peptides and the sterols and the enzymes and the amino acids, it's a whole orchestra. It's not just one note. And I think that is really what people are feeling. I know that's what I'm feeling. Never mind the good energy, the frequency, that spiritual potency that I know I'm feeling because of where our mushrooms are grown.
Yeah, it's the quality and it's the potency.
Yeah. So if you take one thing away from today's episode, Eversio community, it's this. Quality isn't optional. It is everything.
We're proud to offer products that are rooted in tradition, validated by science, and made with integrity from spore to supplements.
And we love to end our episodes with a review on a product that is something you could go look at on our website anytime. We're at over 1,000 5-star reviews there right now. And it's one of my favorite things to read as a bedtime story. So Dr. Desiree, share a review with us.
So mine is on the 3 mushroom blend, which is our TikTok viral product. So I have Allison from the United States. She goes, I have just gotten through my first bottle of the 3 mushroom blend and I am hooked. I have noticed a shift in my mental clarity and my focus over the last few months since taking this. I have been diagnosed with ADHD for the past 25 years, but for a majority of that have not taken medication because I hate the side effects. However, I noticeably feel a difference in my focus and mental clarity after taking the 3 mushroom blend. That feels like the days that I was on ADHD medication. I love this stuff. And I love this review.
Wow, I love that one too. So many people in our community with symptoms of ADHD that find relief from various mushrooms because everyone's different. But that's a great combination. I think the cordyceps and the lion's mane together are a bit of magic in that case. All right, mine is from Christopher, also in the United States, and his title is This Daily Stack Changed Everything. And he says, I am stacking this, which is lion's mane. He's leaving the review on. I'm stocking this with a men's multivitamin, ashwagandha, and then the lion's mane. And I've got to say, my energy is through the roof. I feel 20 years younger. And Christopher, that is how I felt when I started taking really good quality lion's mane as well. And I love that he's adding it to things that he already has benefit from and he's just making it better. I mean, who doesn't love a good amount of habit stacking to really optimize your wellness? So thank you for those reviews. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And we can't wait to see you next time on the Eversio Experience podcast. Sending you love. We hope you learned something new here today. If anyone you know could benefit from what we shared in this episode, please share it with them. And if you're interested in adding mushroom wellness to your life, you can use code podcast15 to save 15% on your entire order at eversiowellness.com.
If you haven't yet left us a rating and review, subscribed to this podcast, or followed our social media accounts listed in the show notes, we would so appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing this moment with us. Until next time, be well.